Hello, and welcome to day 6 of my little radio experiment. I'm your host, Vince Russo, and you're listening to Positive Vibes on RMU Radio, your campus, your voice. Welcome back. Thank you all for joining us again today, and thank you for those who were listening to Kick It at Old School earlier, a great show also on RMU's network of programming here at rmuradio.com. If you are new to rmuradio.com and this is your first time listening, I want to personally welcome you and tell you about some of our other programs that are on, including J. Frank Sports, which is on Wednesday nights at 6:30, and No Huddle on Tuesday and Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. So welcome back, everyone. Last week's topic was confidence. We talked about what does each person do to improve their self-worth and their confidence week by week, and I would like to continue to open that question as we start, and we talk about our topic this week, relationships. But if you want to, this week the text line is down, but you can tweet us or comment in on our Facebook page, our Positive Vibes Facebook page, but our Twit account is at Positive Vibes 99. Now, opening the question up, what did you do and what did you take away from last week's episode? What have you done personally to improve your self-worth and your confidence? So this week we turn the page and we look at the all-important relationships episode, one that I honestly feel applies to so many of us out there, if not all of us. And I would like to reintroduce a guest from a couple weeks ago, Ms. Caroline Degnan, an RMU professor here. She is a professor of psychology. I have her in class so far. And welcome.
Thanks. It's nice to be back.
Good to have you back. And as we move forward, we're going to just jump right into it. Tell us, what is the importance of healthy personal human interaction or relationships?
Well, everyone wants to have human interactions, friendships, romantic relationships. All of those fall into kind of the same realm of importance. Having relationships with people not only helps you emotionally, but it also has a really strong physical influence. It's been found that relationships, being in relationships, can lower your blood pressure, it lowers your heart rate. Being in a marriage adds years to your life. It reduces your risk of suicide, mental illness, a lot of negative things that we might fall into if we didn't have these relationships. Really add to what make having those connections so important.
Now, just clarifying, this includes not just those types of relationships with members of the opposite sex, but relationships on all levels, right?
Yeah. Obviously, romantic relationships are a huge part of us as human beings, but our friendships really do shape who we are. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But we start building friendships and relationships as soon as we're able to socialize even a little bit. We can remember our first friends and how that was, and it's fun having those people, and we want to become people that people want to be friends with. So
what actually constitutes a healthy relationship?
To be in a healthy relationship, and again, this is romantic and a friendship, each person has to be able to be an individual in the relationship, but they also need to be able to grow within the relationship. So giving each person the freedom to do what they like to do, to be who they want to be, encouraging each other, supporting each other's efforts, creating boundaries is really important, because that really does enable people to remain individuals and not become enmeshed or obsessed with each other, both friendships and relationships again. But it's a lot about communication, compromise, just being able to be who you are with that other person.
That seems to be one of the hardest lines for especially adolescents to kind of walk, is keeping from making the relationship a bigger part of your life than it needs to be, and understanding that just because you are not always around or always entangled with this person doesn't take away from the meaningfulness of that relationship.
Yeah, and it's really hard now because you can be connected to that person all the time through technology, Facebook, texting, Snapchat, all of these different things enable you to constantly be connected. And while that's wonderful in some aspects, in others, it really does make it difficult to distance yourself from someone. And you need that distance, especially in the beginning, so that you can figure out what roles each person is going to play in the relationship. And as teenagers, it's all about the drama of it all, really. So that just makes it even bigger.
So how are some ways that we can get the most out of these relationships on all levels, whether we be adolescent, adult, or even as children? What can we do to get the most out of these relationships that benefit both parties involved?
A lot of it has to do with communication, being able to say what you feel truthfully, and not being afraid that person is going to leave if you don't communicate or if you don't say the things that they want to hear. And so just really being available to them, both emotionally and physically, really is important. I know that I have friends all over the country, and being able to make time for each other if you're not able to see each other physically, scheduling phone dates, Skype dates, long, extensive emails that are pages long. That is a way that you can grow and build relationships and really keep them, even if you're not, physically with each other.
All right. Thank you for that, Ms. Degnan. We're going to take a quick musical interlude, just a song to brighten everyone's Monday evening up. So we will transfer to that and be right back here on Positive Vibes on RMU Radio, your campus, your voice.
You're the
right, that was Bob Marley with One Love, a personal favorite of mine. As we move into the next segment of our relationships episode, thank you all for joining us tonight here on RMU Radio. This is Positive Vibes with your host, Vince Russo, being joined by Ms. Caroline Degnan, professor here at Robert Morris University. Tonight we are, as I said, talking about relationships, and if you want to get involved, hit us up on Twitter at PositiveVibes99. Give us the follow and give us a tweet. Let us know how we're doing and what you're thinking, and chime in. A question to pose to you guys for right now is, what do you do to help maintain healthy relationships in your life, and how do these relationships impact you as a person? So we're going to transfer over into the friendship segment of the show. Who doesn't like having a lot of friends? You like having a lot of friends, right?
I do like having a lot of friends, but sometimes it's more about quality than quantity.
That's a great segment, or great segue rather. What is the value of friendship? That's the first question for tonight.
Well, as I was kind of going over these questions beforehand, there's a word that popped out that isn't generally used because it's kind of new, but the word is called, or it's friendfluence. And what friendfluence is talking about is the importance of friendships. And friendships have a huge influence on the person that we are and the person that we become. Because your friends do so much for you that you might not even be conscious of. They give you vital life skills, so it teaches you how to be an appropriate person in relationships. Obviously, that starts when you're younger, but you tend to become friends with people that are very similar to you. And so when you're in those friendship groups, you inspire each other, you push each other towards goals. You really want that other person that you're friends with to succeed, so you do that for each other. Your friends are there through thick and thin. So, I mentioned before having friends all over the country. Well, it doesn't really matter if your friends are in the dorm room next to you or they're halfway around the world. Those friends are going to be there regardless. And so that having that trust and being able to form those attachments is really important. And if you're in a relationship, having other couple friends is healthy for your relationship and for theirs, because you can see what other couples are going through, to understand that, okay, well, you have these problems, I have these problems too. I guess our relationship isn't as tumultuous as it may seem like it is. And finally, your friends give you a reality check. They're the ones that are going to tell you, you look awful in that outfit. Your last boyfriend was really not nice. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Your friends tell you that stuff because they know that you're not going to, well, you may take offense to it, but you're still going to want to be friends with them. You're able to trust them that they're saying it out of the genuineness of their heart, and that it's not going to be seen as you're just being mean to me. So I think being able to understand that your friends say the hard things, but they mean it out of real love, that's one of the most important things about friendship. Because who else says that to you?
So kind of a question that popped into my head while you were giving that response, great response by the way, is what possible detriments can come to a person if they do not have these influences in their lives?
If they don't have strong relationships?
Yes.
Well, I mean, the first and foremost is loneliness. Loneliness is a really harmful thing to experience. You need relationships with, if you have one friendship or 1,000 friendships, you need someone to be able to share what's going on, to talk about the joys and the sorrows in your life. And if you don't have any relationships, you just keep that inside, and there's no one to say, maybe your perception of what's going on isn't correct, or you can have more friendships, you can do these things, you don't have those people to encourage you. And and those are what our friends do. So again, it doesn't matter about quantity but quality. So even having one person that you trust and that you know will be there is so important.
Now, one more question before we go back to another musical break is kind of a different angle. How can we use what these people do for us? Not that we ever want to use people, but how can we use these people to maintain a healthy lifestyle?
Well, as much as there are positives in relationships, and having relationships, as I talked about briefly in the beginning, really does affect your health, your physical health, your emotional health. But on the flip side, relationships also have a lot of negativity. Well, they could have a lot of negativity. So being able to kind of look at a situation from the outside and see, okay, this isn't helpful to me. This isn't helping me grow. This isn't encouraging me to change in any way. I'm putting more into this relationship than the other person. Being able to see that a relationship might be negative, and then acting in a way to either stop those behaviors by yourself or the other person, or getting out of the relationship. So, and I know that's the breakup of even friendships is really difficult, but in order to maintain a, self-care, you have to be able to take away those negatives. And as people get older, you're able to say, okay, I don't need 1,000 people by me. I have 5 wonderful people that I know are there for me, and so I'm going to distance myself from these other people. And that's okay. And it's, we sometimes think that's a negative thing, but if you're not getting something out of a relationship, I can probably bet that other person isn't really getting anything out of it either. So I think being able to recognize when things need to change or when friendships need to distance is a way to really help yourself. So.
Very well said. We are going to flip it over to a little bit of James Taylor to take us into our next segment, and we will catch you on the flip side here at Positive Vibes on rmuradio.com. Your campus, your voice.
When you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand, and nothing is going right, close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call up my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yeah, baby, to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you got to do is call, and I'll be there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got a friend. If the sky above you should turn dark and full of clouds, and that old north wind should begin to blow, keep your head together and call my name out loud now. Soon I'll be knocking upon your door. Just call up my name. Winter, spring, summer, or fall. Yeah. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, ain't it good to know that you got a friend? People can be so cold. They'll hurt you and desert you. Well, they'll take your soul if you let them. Oh yeah, but don't you let them. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Oh, baby, don't you know about winter, spring, summer, or fall? Hey, now all you got to do is call. Lord, I'll be there, yes, I will. You've got a friend. You've got a friend, yeah. Ain't it good to know you've got a friend? Ain't it good to know you've got a friend? Oh yeah, yeah, you've got a friend.
Welcome back here on Positive Vibes on RMURadio.com. I'm your host, Vince Russo, joined by Ms. Caroline Degnan. We had a contributor from the tweet line, Ms. Kristen Kudla. Thank you for the contributing. Thank you for contributing. She wanted to talk about, vaguely enough, what would you say about frenemies? What kind of influence do frenemies have on you?
Well, frenemies are those people that pretend that they are your real friends, but in actuality, their motives and their purpose in the relationship is solely about them. So we talked about a little bit how a relationship is formed on like mutual respect, and how you're going to want to encourage the person and be encouraged yourself. Frenemies tend to be very manipulative and want to make you kind of come out in a more negative light. So they'll do things that are purposefully harmful. I mean, I think of frenemies and I think of Mean Girls, the movie.
That's what I was going to say. Is that?
And yes, it is. Being, a girl in my late 20s, frenemies don't go away once you get out of high school or once you get out of college. They kind of even tend to get worse at times. But I think that you can use frenemies in a really positive way, because you can recognize when they're there, and then see what they're doing, and your actions can kind of be the opposite. And again, if you find yourself in a situation where you have a frenemy, just don't be around them. I mean, it's really not that difficult to kind of distance yourself, or I would even say call them out on it. If someone's doing something that's harmful to you, there is nothing wrong with saying that that person is behaving in a way that is not appropriate.
Do you think there's a possibility that you could kill them with kindness, so to speak?
I possibly, but the way that people kind of become frenemies is because one person wants what another person has. So if you're killing them with kindness, it's kind of giving them what they want. They want that kind of devotion from that other person. They want to seem like they are in charge of this relationship. We're going to talk about just unhealthy relationships, and that is an unhealthy one, because one person has the control where another person doesn't. So I think you can build kind of a mutual understanding between each other, but I don't think there's ever going to be a real friendship that will be long-lasting.
Well, thank you, Kristen, for the interjection into the show. Another interjection, if you haven't seen Mean Girls, I personally recommend it, even as a guy.
It's wonderful.
Great movie.
I mean, if you want to see unhealthy relationships, that's a good one.
To
for
the
ya.
max. And another quick interjection. If you are enjoying the show and you want to get involved just as Kristen did, the Twitter line is @PositiveVibes99. We always appreciate any kind of communication between our listeners and us here in the studio. So as we move on, we're going to continue talking about unhealthy relationships because these are the ones that seem to be the ones that are on people's minds more often than not. So describe, kind of like you did earlier with a healthy relationship, what constitutes an unhealthy relationship?
Obviously, we're familiar with, physically unhealthy relationships, and I want to touch on that first just because that's the most important thing anyone can hear if they hear anything tonight, that if you are in a physically abusive, if you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, either one, take steps to get out of that immediately. I know that there's a lot of aspects involved in relationships, but no one deserves to be physically or emotionally abused. So
why do people struggle so much to get out of those relationships? It seems like sometimes, granted there is an intimidation factor, but what makes it so hard for people to leave a relationship they know that's unhealthy? I've been in that position myself personally.
Yeah, it's really it's a lot of it depends on the person, but there's levels of obviously fear, but also guilt. Okay, well, like if I leave this person, what are they going to do without me? And the fear goes even more so if you have children. So if I leave this person, are they going to take my kids away? If I leave this person, am I going to have anywhere to live if you're living with that person? Also, couples become very dependent on each other. So if there was kind of that love at the beginning, there's always that hope that it's going to get back to the way that it was. So couples will stay with each other even when it gets unhealthy, simply because they once had that love. So getting out of unhealthy relationships and abusive relationships is very, very difficult, just on so many levels.
So what are some ways then we can go about trying to either repair, if it is repairable, or end a negative relationship?
First is identifying what the problem is. Obviously, if the problem is abuse, physical, emotional, verbal. I forgot verbal in our last little question, but if that's the problem, then it's pretty self-explanatory. You need to take action to get yourself out of it. That involves having a plan, having people behind you, and being confident in your decision to get out. If the problem is more in terms of communication and not being on the same page, a lot of what helps that is identifying what the problem is. So looking at the relationship and seeing where can we fix things, what needs to be fixed, but also what are the positive aspects that we enjoy and we like about each other that wants us to work this hard to fix it. Talking about it, having cooperative conversation. And cooperative conversation means having one person talk, having another person listen. There's no name calling, there's no blaming, there's here's my opinion, I'm going to listen to it, then I'm going to give you my view on it. Being honest and trusting your partner to know that you can say those hard things, and they're not going to simply run away. They're going to want to work at it. And trust is something that's so, so important, because it's what we build everything on. I've talked about attachment styles in my class, but knowing that person is going to be there, that's what trust is. Being supportive, and sharing activities. So while there's a lot of tension and there might be turmoil, finding something that you both like let's just stop for a second and have fun. Whether it's going for a walk together, playing a sport, listening to music. Let's just do something we both like. Like, let's take a break.
Well, isn't that the root of what relationships truly are finding people to have fun with?
Yeah. I mean, that's where it all starts. Where do you usually meet people? At places where you're doing something that you like. And so if a relationship turns into one where there is no fun, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship like that. You find those commonalities, and that's what makes it grow. And then, as time goes on, you can pass those, joys onto your kids and other people too. So
what, kind of spinning around to a different angle again as we wind down the show, what kind of benefits can come from a median of sorts, or a counselor interjecting and helping with an unhealthy relationship?
Yeah, well, if a relationship gets to the point where you really don't feel like you and your partner can work it out on your own, having a third party come in terms of a marriage and family counselor, a therapist, really is very beneficial. I know that there's a huge stigma about counseling and therapy and whatnot, but the reality is a lot of people can't get married in certain churches unless they go to counseling. I know in Catholic religions, you have to go to pre-Cana, and that is, it's I think 3 or 4 sessions where you just sit and speak with your priest about all of the really important life issues that are sometimes hard to talk about, like money, family, all, those topics that are sensitive. So having that third party really encourages people to share their true, honest feelings without the threat of being judged by that other person, or the other person actually leaving. Obviously, I'm a counselor, and so I have a very positive view of what counseling is, but I have that view because I know it works. Because I have been in counseling personally, and it is proven that when you allow yourself to talk to somebody, it really does help you grow and change and become the person that you want to be. So the client is in control. The person that is getting the counseling has complete control over the session. It's not, you're going to do this, this, and this. It's, let's talk about this. Let's build a team here. So it focuses on the individual or the couples. And you work towards goals. So in couples counseling, it's figuring out what the problem is. And yes, problems can be more individualized. One person can be doing something more than another person. And how do we want to fix it? But also, do we want to fix it? I think there's an idea that marriage and family counseling only focuses on, let's make this relationship work. But what if a relationship really shouldn't work? Counseling helps the couple understand that it's okay to go your separate ways. And how are we going to do this in a positive way? So I talked a little bit about kind of that, realizing when relationships aren't good for you. That's what counseling can do too. It's helping you make those kind of hard realizations and working through it in a gentle way.
It's a fantastic point. Anytime you can open up your train of thought and go outside of the box, because there are so many stigmas about, especially relationships.
Yeah.
And that's why this episode was so important.
Yeah, we never want to think that our relationships are any different, or that they're not positive, or that we don't know how to be in a relationship. I think that's a lot of what people think. It's like, I don't know what to do. Well, no, when you're in a relationship, it's not knowing, it's being. So, are you being the kind of person that you want to be? And are you being the kind of person that is connecting with that other person? So.
All right, well, we are going to go to one more music break before we wrap up the show. I'm Vince Russo, joined by Ms. Caroline Degnan here on Positive Vibes on RMURadio.com. Your campus, your voice. All right, we are back once again on RMURadio.com. This is Positive Vibes with your host, Vince Russo, joined by Miss Caroline Degnan, a professor here of psychology at RMU. So another contributor, my good friend Nick Lay, all the way from the land down under in Australia, from Sydney. Thank you very much for not only contributing tonight, Nick, but also talking to me and privately about getting the ball rolling on this episode. A lot of credit has to go out to him. He was a driving force in really wanting me to talk about this and preparing this whole episode. So I hope that you are enjoying this and that everyone out there is enjoying this. So he tweeted into the show, how do you create a positive relationship? Ms. Degnan, any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know if you can create a positive relationship. I think that it kind of just happens. But there are ways to make it happen. And the first and foremost is being vulnerable, being able to kind of be exactly who you are, and that might be uncomfortable, embarrassing. You don't know how a person is going to react to you, but when you are in a relationship, you want that person to be in a relationship with exactly who you are. So, not hiding, not creating a mask that you wear with this person. Being confident that you are the kind of person that they want, but also, are they the person that you want? We put so much emphasis on ourselves. Like, am I what they need? Am I doing this right? But are they giving you what you want? So, finding that mutual respect for each other, is so important. And for those, initial few weeks or months, be willing to feel silly, because who you are is wonderful, and show it.
Thank you, and thank you to Nick for the contribution on the Twitter feed. Our Twitter feed is at PositiveVibes99. Kind of segueing off the mask and the whole, I guess I would say the stereotype for relationships that we see on TV, is that an interesting thought as we go forward after the show ends is that no two relationships are alike. It's okay to see your friends in a relationship and you be in a relationship and do very, very different things and communicate in different ways and express yourself in different ways. Relationships are different because of the different people inside of them, and these people are different, and because of those people being different, and that makes it up into what makes it so special, is a bond between you two. And that is something that doesn't have to fall into what other people find necessarily healthy or acceptable, although there are standards and norms. So as we start to wind down, Ms. Degnan, could you give us some last-minute tips as far as the whole relationships thing in a nutshell?
Well, that's a big question. But I think just kind of going off like the last topic of what creates a really healthy relationship, but just being yourself. I think of my friends, and those are the people that I feel the most comfortable with. You have these relationships, whether they're friendships or romantic relationships, because you want those connections. And so, people will like you. That idea of rejection is really scary, but you will find the person that you're meant to be with, and just trusting in that. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you again, as always, for joining us tonight on Positive Vibes. Your second time here. It's a pleasure to have you.
This is fun. I'm like a pro now.
So as we move towards next week, nothing is etched in stone, but the topic as of right now, as we head towards the dreaded finals weeks for different college students and even towards the end of the semester for high school kids, is handling stress. And even beyond those kids, stress is a huge part of life. Ask any adult. Kids, if you go ask your parents if stress is a part of their life. They might have a name for it. But on a more serious note, stress is what I'm planning on talking about next week. I hope that you all join us and that you keep in touch with the show even in the off hours, the 7 days in between. You can follow us on Twitter at PositiveVibes99 or find us on Facebook, our Positive Vibes link. And there's also a YouTube channel. If you type in Positive Vibes, do a little digging, you should be able to find it, and you can listen to this show and all the other archive shows from our past and keep in touch with the show that way. So once again, this is Vince Russo, joined by Ms. Caroline Degnan again tonight. One more time, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
You're so welcome.
And we will catch you next week here on Positive Vibes. I'm your host, Vince Russo. This is RMU Radio, your campus, your voice. Good night, everyone.